What if I told you that you are not poor because money refuses you? You are poor because a past is repeating itself through your life. You say life is unfair. You say money never stays. You say every time you rise, something happens and pulls you back to the same place. You call it bad luck. You call it timing. You call it the way life has always treated you. But I tell you, it may be an old scene still alive within you, still wearing your face, still deciding what life is allowed to give until you revise it. Stay with me. For tonight, I will show you a man who stopped wishing for a better future and went back to revise the past that was still producing his life. And when the past changed, the world began to pay the new man. I want to tell you about a man who came home from war with almost nothing. He had no fortune, no advantage, and no evidence that life would become generous to him. He took the first work he could find, earning $25 a week. He worked, he advanced, he did what men are told to do. After 10 years of effort, he found himself earning $600 a month. To many, this would appear as progress, but to him it became a revelation. He saw that he had not escaped the old self. He had only improved the conditions around it. The same man was still moving through life. Better paid, perhaps, but not free. Then he changed one thing. Not his employer, not his outer habits, not the people around him. He changed the past from which he was living. He went back in imagination and revised the inner record that had been silently producing his life. 2 years later, he stood before my audience and told them that his income had risen to match that of the President of the United States. Let me be clear. I do not tell you this as inspiration. I tell you this as evidence. For imagination is not comfort. It is law. When I say he changed his past, I do not speak in a figure of speech. I mean he returned to it in imagination and changed the scene. This is revision. It is not pretending. It is not denial. It is not closing your eyes to pain and calling it healed. Revision is the deliberate act of entering a remembered scene and making it conform to the truth you now choose to live from. Most men carry their past as though it were a sentence passed upon them. They say, this happened to me, therefore I am this kind of man. They were rejected, and they became one who expects rejection. They were poor, and they became one who expects struggle. They were overlooked, and they became one who enters every room already half defeated. The event passed away, but the state remained. That is what must be revised, not merely the picture, but the meaning you accepted from it. If a scene left you feeling small, then you must return and leave it feeling chosen. If a conversation ended in shame, then you must return and hear it end in dignity. If a door closed and made you believe life was against you, then you must return and see the door open or see yourself walking away free. This man had accumulated years of small defeats, not dramatic disasters, perhaps, but the quiet inner record of a man who works and is never fully free. So he stopped trying to build a new future upon an unrevised past. He went back. He changed the imaginal record. And when the record changed, the man who came out of it changed also. Now I will speak plainly to you. If the same money problem keeps returning, do not only look at the money, look at the self who keeps meeting it. You may earn more and still feel poor. You may receive money and still expect it to disappear. You may get a better opportunity and still enter it as the man who is afraid it will not last. And so the amount changes, the room changes, the faces change, but the inner expectation remains the same. That expectation did not begin this morning. It was born somewhere, Perhaps in a house where money was always tense. Perhaps in a humiliation you never revised. Perhaps in a failure you secretly accepted as proof of what life would always be for you. The scene passed, but the conclusion remained. This is why many men are not freed by effort alone. They work harder, but from the same old self. They ask for more, but inwardly expect less. They imagine wealth, but still feel like a visitor in the house of abundance. Then they wonder why the world gives them almost enough, briefly enough, or not quite enough. Do not condemn yourself for this. See it. The money pattern is not merely in your account. It is in the state you return to when no one is watching. The familiar fear, the familiar tightness, the familiar thought that says, here it is again. Money comes, and then it goes. That is the past repeating. And until that past is revised, the future has very little room to become new. Here is how you begin. Tonight before sleep, choose one money memory. Not 10, 1. Choose a moment where money first became fear, shame, pressure, or proof that life would always be hard. A bill on the table. A parent argue about money in anger. A room where you felt poor beside others. A day when you wanted something simple and were told we cannot afford it. Do not return to that scene to suffer it again. Return as the operant power. Enter it in imagination and change the ending. Hear different words. See relief where there was fear. See provision where there was lack. See dignity where there was shame. Let yourself leave that scene no longer marked by poverty, but free from it. Make the revised scene simple. If the old scene was a bill unpaid, see it paid. If the old scene was a voice saying there is not enough, here instead, it is taken care of. If the old scene was you feeling small because of money, see yourself standing calm, provided for, and unashamed. Do not make it theatrical. Make it natural enough to believe. Then sleep from that revised ending. Do not carry the old money story into sleep again. Do not rehearse lack and then wonder why lack keeps returning under another name. Take the scene and redeem it. Change it until it no longer says, money never stays. Change it until it says, I have always been provided for. This is not small work. Men think their money problem is only in the account, the wage, or the bill. But often, the account is only repeating the old inner record. Revise the record, and the outer expression must change. The man I told you about did not begin by chasing another opportunity. He began by changing the inner record of himself. And when that record changed, the world began to meet another man. So I leave you with this. Poverty is not only the absence of money. It is often the expectation that money will leave, that help will not come, that relief will be temporary, and that life will always return you to the same place. That expectation did not begin with today's bill. It began somewhere, perhaps in a room where money was spoken of with fear, perhaps in a moment when you wanted something simple and were told there was not enough. Perhaps in watching the people around you struggle until struggle began to feel normal. And without knowing it, you accepted a conclusion. Money will always be this way for me. That conclusion is the poverty loop. Not the number in the account. Not the temporary condition. Not the unpaid bill. The loop is the state that keeps saying, even if money comes, it will not stay. Even if the door opens, it will close again. Even if I rise, I will be brought back down. And if you do not revise that conclusion, you will keep calling its harvest your fate. You will say life is unfair, money is hard, opportunity never lasts, and the world will agree with you because you have already agreed within yourself. Tonight, break the loop at its root. Do not fight the bill. Do not argue with the number. Do not wait for money to arrive before you feel free. Go to the old conclusion and remove its authority. Let the past hear a new verdict. There is enough. I am provided for. This is not my sentence anymore. For when the old conclusion dies, the same future cannot keep being born from it. A new state must produce a new road, and the world which seemed to repeat poverty must begin to answer the man who no longer carries poverty as truth. Revise the route, not tomorrow, not when money proves it is safe. Revise tonight. Break the poverty loop where it began, and let the life before you answer the past you have now redeemed. Now, let us go into the silence